Hey, I'm Ted Santos, and I want to have a conversation about a lie that has been told to society. The lie is such a big problem that not only do women believe it in huge numbers, there are even men who believe the lie, and they are helping to promote the lie. And any man who speaks up against this lie, there are men, even men, who attempt to shut them down. I want to say thank you to all the women who understand the lie is a lie and you haven't fallen for it. For the women who have fallen for it, well, it's become such a big part of popular culture in the movies, the music, the books, education system, that women are altering the decisions they make, and that is altering the trajectory of mankind. So much so that women are now saying they don't want to have children. They want to live like a man. They want to do everything a man can do because they actually believe they can be men. Some women even want to celebrate Father's Day, and there are consequences. Uh, for example, if two people die every day in the world, and we only have one new baby for every two people that die, it's just a matter of time before more people die than are being born, and that will make the human race extinct because women believe living a life like a man is in their interest, in society's interest, and they believe that they're actually performing like men. Well, I want to do a I want to look at a real situation where a woman actually took on what it meant to be a man. She actually set up her life to present herself as a man. So this woman decided at some point in her life, and imagine she was raised by both parents. Her father was an attorney for the Ford Motor Company. And she decided she didn't want to be with men. She decided to be a lesbian. As you see, I'll drop the article, I'll drop the link. It's in Evie magazine. And the title of the article is Woman Who Pretends to Be a Man Dies by Assisted Suicide After Realizing How Difficult it was to be a man. What's interesting is this woman went to another country for assisted suicide in July. So she died in July. It wasn't reported until August. And the headlines, the story is now, and this article is dated September 2nd, 2022. So this happened this year. She died in July, and it's not being reported in the media, and it's not even being discussed to help women understand they've been lied to. So, a woman attempting to be a man, most women will never ever understand what it means to be a man or to be masculine. However, here's a woman who made a true effort to understand what manhood is really about. And they don't go through it all here in the article, so I'm going to use another source to help shed more light on this. So, as you see, I'm not going to read the whole thing. She was 53 years old, uh, and 53-year-old journalist Nora Vincent committed suicide on July 6, 2022, after experiencing what it was like to live as a man. So you see her dog, uh, and she wrote a book to talk about the experience called Self Made Man. Ugh, didn't want that to happen. Um, and doing this experiment, what's interesting is she set out to do this for 2 years. It was so devastating for her that she cut it short at 18 months. So she didn't just wake up and say, I'm going to dress like a man. She actually took some steps. So let's see. It says that she was a lesbian, not transgender, but her inquisitive nature made her curious about gender identity. In 2003, She hired a makeup artist to help her paint stubble on her face to match her short dark hair. She worked out. She worked out to build the muscles on her back, wore rectangular frame glasses, and strapped her breast against her chest. And with the help of a Juilliard vocal coach, she was even able to train her voice to sound more manly. So she was determined. So she put in an enormous amount of effort to be able to present herself as a man in the world. So for 18 months, Nora pretended to be a man under her new name, Ned. So her as instead of Nora, her name was Ned. And it says that she did manly things and joined a bowling league, a Roman Catholic monastery, and an awareness group for men. She went to strip clubs. She dated women. She even worked in a male-dominated industry. And despite these adventures, Ned, her name, uh, did not feel alive, free, or fluid. In fact, Ned was wearing Nora down, and she began to fall into a deep depression. Uh, so let's see. She said, but my male experience, so so it's interesting. She says, I suspect people will go into thinking, oh, it's written by a lesbian, she's going to be male bashing all the way down the line. And she said, but my experience was one that made me feel very vulnerable and made me feel a lot of pain and difficulty. While all of us in the post-feminist movement are convinced that women have always had it worse and men have always had it better, it took me stepping into their shoes to realize that that's not at all. That's not true at all. And this woman's a journalist. So this is what, I don't know, you could say real investigative reporting, right? What is it really like to be a man? She said, men have different problems than women, but they don't have it better. Men need our sympathy, they need our love, and they need each other more than anything. Men need to be together. And so here, she had to admit herself to a hospital for feeling suicidal in 2008. While Nora was incredibly self aware and reflective, it seems she never got over the mental difficulties and setbacks she faced from living as a man. In the summer of 2022, she finally succumbed to her pain and died at the age of 53, assisted living in Switzerland. So, closing thoughts: male privilege in the modern era is a myth. In 2020, it was found that 70% of homeless individuals were men. Men are four times likely to commit suicide than women. Men make up 80% of all murder victims nationwide. Men make up just over half of the workforce, yet they make up 90% of workplace fatalities. I mean, just listen to that. Men are about half of the workforce, yet 90% of workplace fatalities are men because men take on those dangerous jobs. We don't talk about these things. So, just a little bit more about Nora here. Mm, So, now here's the part that the article doesn't address. So, what she said is that the only time, this is about Nora Venson in Wikipedia. So this is what taken from her book. Uh, the only time she ever been considered excessively feminine was during her stint as a man. her alter ego, Ned, who she was playing, who she named herself. So while Nora, who's a woman, was pretending to be a man named Ned, during that time, she was assumed to be gay on several occasions. Why? Because she never pulled off manhood. Uh, a lot of features which had been considered butch when she was presented as a woman. So when she was a lesbian and she did things that were considered butch, when she was present doing the same things as a man, they were perceived as oddly effeminate when she tried to do that, presenting herself as a man. And she says since the experiment, she had more fully realized the benefits of being female and the disadvantages of being male, stating, I really like being a woman. I like it more now because I think it's more of a privilege. Those are her words after pretending to be a man. She says men are suffering. They have different men. Blah blah blah. They need a. So so what's the point here? The point is that it's actually an insult to tell a woman she's masculine. There's no such thing as a masculine woman. But as this woman proved, as she went into the world and gave her interpretation, her image of what it means to be a man, she named herself Ned. She had the voice lessons. She had the dress, the stubble on her face, and all the things that she did to try and persuade the world that she was masculine actually made her look feminine and effeminate. And that's what happens when women try to say, well, I'm the mother and the father, and I can be a man, and I don't need a man to raise children. I don't need a man in my life, period. And that men have it easier. Women pretending to be a man is no different than a woman going out to New York City and Times Square and getting on all fours, barking and pretending to be a dog. Anyone who sees that is going to know that that's not a dog. You're a woman pretending to be something you're not. You're not a dog. It's actually an insult because that's a woman's interpretation of manhood. And so, what you're now delivering to society is a lie, and you're raising children is a lie for those of you who want children. But it also gives you a false sense of security. Even when you go into the workplace and believe, well, I'm doing the same thing as a man, you're not. Biologically, you're not. You're not putting in the hours. You don't have the biology that drives men to take risks. We do this from the time we were boys and climbing trees and breaking bones and driving cars at outrageous risks. And you see some of the pictures and videos online that say this is why men live shorter lives. But it's not just that. Men have protected women from those dangers. You look at 90% of the jobs, we don't force women to take those jobs. We don't force women to be on the front line of the battlefield. And when we look at over time, when they said humans died, the average age was like 45. There's a guy named Peter Drucker. He wrote this book, The Age of Discontinuity. And in the book, he does an analysis on that. And he says the reason why men were dying so much sooner than women, it wasn't that modern medicine, it was that men were dying and being maimed and injured from farming accidents. So without technology and so much manual labor that was being done by men because we protected women from doing it, men were getting so damaged and maimed that they died younger. And if you look at some of the wealthy people uh, from 100, 200 years ago, they lived to be 80, 90 years old, well into their 90s, many of them. They lived longer lives than poorer people who had to engage in labor. So women are being sold lies. And many men are buying into this and being upset with other men for not buying into it. I'd like to share another a video of women who believe they can live a life of a man. Now, listen to what these women say, and you guys will recognize the gentleman here, Andrew Tate. Uh, I'm showing this for educational purposes only. Um,
if you're not gonna have children, if you're not gonna have children, what are you gonna do with your lives?
If I'm not gonna have children, travel, just pursue anything that makes me happy. Try to make money. I love traveling, so I would probably just
Drink cocktails on the beach. Okay, next.
About the same thing, like travel, focus on my career, things like that. Like my career will become my baby.
What about
See, these women have been sold that they can do everything that a man can do. I mean, just listen to the answers going around the table. These are things that you would hear a man say, and there's a responsibility that comes with capital. Men don't just party this away. Men make money, find a woman, raise a family, educate, take care of them, feed them, and help the community. But listen to what the women say.
what about you?
I honestly just want to get right into my career.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
What do you want to do in life?
Right now, so I go to the University of Miami. I'm majoring in interactive media. What I want to do with that is build virtual reality simulators for the military. And I'm also minoring in motion pictures. I'm interested in acting and shit like that.
Miss Cuba, what about you?
Do whatever the fuck I want.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Well, I plan on becoming a doctor. So I'm just my career.
Your career.
This is what women are being told, that you too can be a man. Throw away your femininity, throw away being a woman. And as I said, now we have a population where every day more people are dying than being born. So 5 people die, 2 people are born. That's a plan for extinction. So as we're selling these women these lies, do women realize the long-term trajectory is the extinction of the human race? But maybe not for everyone, because if you look at countries like England, France, even Spain, the Arabic, the Muslim population, they are, for every person dying with them, 3 people are being born. So their communities are growing. In fact, they're saying over the next, I don't know, 70 years, that places like England, France, and Spain are going to be, the majority will be Muslims, the Arabics. And in the US, well, hell, they've had to change abortion laws because the fear is over the next 30 years, this will be a Hispanic country, because the Latino community continue having babies. So for every one person that dies, they have 2 or 3 children. But for the Caucasian, the white population in the US, and the Black population, we're aborting them. We're not having children, not getting married, having single children, and that comes with single motherhood comes with a bunch of problems all by itself. Now, this video, interestingly, I want you to hear the perspective of a conservative gentleman after he listened to Andrew Tate respond to these women.
Okay. As you can tell, he's very passionate about the subject matter.
So this is not what I expected. I saw him just a day ago on the Tucker Carlson, and I was saddened that when he talked about men and masculinity, he spoke about everything but becoming a husband, but getting married. So obviously that might have just been a unique conversation, because if this typifies him, while that's not my mode of presentation,
No.
that is the content of my life's thinking.
Mm.
I have had, in fact,
So Andrew Tate is what, about 35, and this gentleman, maybe he's 60. Very different generations. Yet, and he's saying he doesn't agree with the delivery and the conversations that Andrew has. Apparently, lots of people don't agree with Andrew because he's been canceled off of all social media. And this guy may have been one of the people who may have wanted to hear him silenced because he didn't agree with his delivery. And I'll play Andrew's response. The point is, there's common ground. And the idea of telling women that they could be men um, should be troubling for all men, should be troubling for women. And for all the men who have daughters, what are you actually teaching your daughter? Are you teaching your daughter to go down a path like the lesbian woman Nora, who ended up committing suicide because she wanted to live like a man, and it didn't work?
your viewers can actually see this on the internet. A few years ago, I did something. I have over 1,000 columns on the internet, 20 years of 50 columns a year. So that's a lot.
Yes.
I devoted one in all of those 1,000. All I did is transcribe a phone call from a caller.
Mm-hmm.
A woman exactly like that, 50 years old, called my show because one of my hours each week of my radio show is devoted to men and women. It's called the Male Female Hour. And this was the topic that day. And she called in to say she has a PhD. She makes well into six figures income. She has a great job. And she goes home at.
This has become the dream for women in the US. I mean, just listen to this woman. So many women would say she has the perfect life. But listen to the reality of a woman in her 50s.
At night, did I say she was about 50? Did I say that? Yeah.
Yep.
And she goes home exactly what he described, to an empty house.
Mm-hmm.
And she regrets terribly that she bought the career Kool-Aid. There's nothing wrong in a woman having a career. There's something wrong if she thinks that will bring her satisfaction,
Right.
like a good husband and a family. By the way, so of course I say good husband.
Mm-hmm.
A bad husband is not going to bring you joy.
Right. It's not at all.
Right, and it's a gamble. But so as a bad career is a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
Who promised you a good career? How do you know you'll be working with people that you enjoy or who are decent and honest?
Right.
There are no guarantees in life. So you're not guaranteed a good career if you pursue career. You're not guaranteed a good husband if you get married. However, all things being equal, it's better. There's no question. And I'm a man, and I'm saying that for me.
Yeah. So how do you think, a lot of people are going to talk about this being the case for modern day women, and a lot of young women I hear echoing the same sentiments. I don't want kids. I want the career. I want to be able to travel. I'll be the aunt who spoils her nieces and nephews. How do you think we got to the point that is a
Oh, I know.
commonplace?
What he's going to say is mind-boggling for some, and it's common knowledge for others. But the problem is, as a society, we don't want to talk about this. We sweep it under the rug, like the woman Nora Vincent. She died of assisted living, uh, assisted suicide. Sorry, because she was devastated by her experience of being a man, and we don't, as a nation, don't want to discuss this. But how we got here? Well, here's a gentleman who's old enough. I would say he's more than 60. He's probably close to 80. So he has seen historical events in the U.S. for decades. So this guy could be Andrew Tate's grandfather. So this is two generations, and somehow they're seeing the same thing. Listen to why he says, or how he says we got here. And this is Dennis Prager, Prager University. I'll drop the link. conservative, very conservative guy, a guy who generally wouldn't promote or stand by someone like Andrew Tate, but listen to the honesty of what he says and what he says he witnessed and he was part of.
I know how you got to that point. There was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal recently, which echoed something I said all my life. Feminism has deceived now 3 generations of women. Started with my generation, specifically college in the early 70s, in my case, graduate school. And uh, I remember one of the gigantic lies, and I'm going to be very open with you. You might be shocked here.
I'm ready.
Well, yes, get ready. I'm warning you.
I mean, what he's going to say is just picture perfect of how we got here and how women have been set up, and the word lies. I mean, we've got this pop culture. There's no evidence to support that this new ideal women have about trying to be a man is the path to bliss and fulfillment. There's no proof for it, but pop culture promotes it as though it's real and no one questions it. But listen to what he says.
I might go down in your esteem with this story, but I don't care. I prefer honesty to anything else.
Of course.
So they were told, among the 2 biggest lies feminism told women were career beats a man. The old line, a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle. You've heard that line, right? Okay. The other big lie was your sexual nature is like a man's. You can have sex with no commitment, no emotional attachment, and enjoy it just like men can.
You're right.
I mean, on the surface, for a guy, this is great news. This is paradise, man. Wow, women bought that lie. Let's party, have a good time. Life is good.
Right.
So now, why did I preface this by saying that I will go down in your estimation? So this was my 20s, and I remember thinking, holy crow, did I luck out? Men have wanted women to think this way for 4,000 years.
Right.
And it just happened as I get to be 20 years old. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because I was always a decent guy, and I would not mislead a woman into thinking that there was an emotional possibility if there weren't. And now they're saying it doesn't matter.
Right.
So who am I to intervene with this great feminist message?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I saw a video this morning of a comedian talking about modern day women, and he said, you know what, men, we got to make it out there to those women's marches. And the guys are like, why? And he says, because the women aren't wearing any clothes. They're talking about sleeping with a bunch of men and not caring about it. They'll get rid of your baby if you don't want it. He's like, this is a dream for a lot of men.
That's exactly, no, for all men. Now, remember, that's a dream for male nature.
Right.
It's not a dream for a long period. That's why I got married, because I said, I'm not going to live this life forever. This is empty. I was a committed religious person, in my case, to Judaism, as a Jew. I knew this was not the life that I should be leading. But of course, I also wanted to find the right person.
Right.
So this was you asked me, how did this start? The answer is with well-educated women. The well-educated have done all the damage of the 20th century.
There's a book called Hidden Persuader. If you haven't read it, it's very good. It's well worth the read. It was written in about 1956. And it talks about how ad agencies figured out the code, the combination to manipulate and trick women. And they hired all kinds of psychologists and social anthropologists and sociologists. And they figured out how to create ad campaigns and convince through propaganda, convince women to do things that normally women would be completely against. And the way they promoted feminism, it seemed to be hooked or set up with all the bells and whistles that would trick women into going down a path that was not good for them. And as you hear this gentleman saying, it worked. So the book is called The Hidden Persuader, and it talks about how they used ad agencies and propaganda to change minds and attitudes of people. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. I mean, women just bought into the emotional propaganda without ever thinking about long-term consequences. And here we are.
Yep.
The well-educated followed communism, the greatest mass murder movement in human history. The well-educated were deceived and deceptive, and they told women this nonsense: career über alles, above everything, and that they don't need a man, and that they could have sex just like men can.
And now here we are.
Now here we are with the largest depression rate among young women in recorded American history.
Yeah. So in this
Largest depression rate amongst women. So I started this story out talking about a woman, Nora Vincent, who became so depressed she took her life. While it's true that men commit suicide more than women are about 3.5 times more likely to attempt suicide. So when men commit suicide, it's because something really isn't working. In the case of Nora Vincent, she was not a man. She pretended to be a man. At any time, she could go back to being a woman, except the way a woman's brain works, she was so devastated. See, we hear that women are mentally stronger than men, yet when a woman is put in an exactly equal position as a man, she finds out what it really means to be a man, and women's brains are not designed to handle a man's life. And we see what happened.
case, after watching this video of Andrew Tate, he's a highly controversial man at the moment. You may not agree with the delivery, but you agree with the message.
Yes.
So what was Andrew's message? Let's see what he had to say to these women. What was this delivery that he didn't find?
I'm passionate about it, so
A life without children is vacuous, and it's inane, and it's pointless. And you may sit here and think that your career matters, but the truth is that your job will fire you out of wind and don't give a second. Don't give a solitary shit. And when you're 52 and you're past it with no grandchildren in a house by yourself, and all your friends have grandchildren in this beautiful life, and you're sitting there by yourself, do you think the fact that you can afford a few extra Gucci bags is going to genuinely make you feel happy? I was at my grandmother's 93rd birthday. I looked there. My grandmother had 9 children, because there was my father and 8 more. They all had a bunch of kids, blah, blah, blah. I stood there and looked at my 93-year-old grandmother, and there was a whole room full with maybe 70 people that came from that one woman. Isn't that remarkable? Yeah. That nobody cared about her career. Nobody asked what job she did. Nobody asked how many times she went to the club. Nobody asked if she had had time to go to festivals. No. You had 70 sentient beings, including myself, full of life from one woman who dedicated herself to being a mother and a good wife. That is beautiful. And if you sit here and genuinely think that you're going to work your ass off through your fertile years, and by the age of 54, you're not going to be suicidal alone with a cat, then you're dumb. The happiest women on earth have children and a man who's paying the bills and their mothers. The happiest people on earth. I guarantee it. Your mothers, ask your own mother, do you regret having me? She's going to say, of course not. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. So now you're going to sit here and you're going to end your own bloodline? All your ancestors were out there surrounded by saber-toothed fucking tigers trying to survive on the streets out there in caveman days just to get to the final end where we have all the medical care and you can live in a nice warm house for your fucking selfish ass to say, no, I don't want kids. I'm too busy in the fucking strip club or going to fucking Mallorca to have a pina colada on the beach. It's absolutely insulting to your entire bloodline. Everything everyone above you has ever done and struggled for. All the times your grandparents went to work, but they didn't feel like it, just for you to exist. For your selfish ass to say no. Me and my passions and my dreams and my shit drawings and my Instagram page is worth more than ever having children. You're a selfish fuck. Fuck that. You should all have kids.
So that was Andrew Tate's take on where these women are and their decisions and how they've been deceived. And none of them seem to be intelligent enough to understand that they have been bamboozled. I want to take, before I end this, I want to take one more guy who's also quite controversial and let him give a final word on this.
Can't, sister. Yes, sir. If you can't really be a man, nature just didn't give it to you. That's why I said, set your face for religion, being upright, the nature made by Allah in which He has created the human being. Nature cannot be changed or altered. It's who you are. They can change the physical anatomy, but what makes you the essence of you? They can't deal with that. And every time you walk away from the discovery of yourself, you delay the power of your own growth into yourself.
So, women attempting to live a life of a man, even if you do a sex change, it doesn't matter. I once dated a woman who was really a bisexual. She went to an all girls boarding school, and she said she didn't know the girls were getting intimate with one another. But fast forward, she met one of the girls from her boarding school who uh, was lesbian uh, during the time of school, and this lesbian decided to get an operation and become a man. Well, the bisexual woman said, even though she had the operation and she appeared as a man, she never pulled off manhood. She would become insecure around other men. She would think people knew that she was not a man. She always felt like she wasn't enough as a man. So the bisexual woman said, if I'm going to be with someone pretending to be a man, I might as well just be with a man who can actually pull off masculinity and manhood. So, as a society, if we attempt to fight and work against nature, we are going to lose. As the story of the woman Nora Vincent, who took her own life because she attempted to know what it's like to be something that she's not, she lost. In the end, nature is perfect and it did not make mistakes for who men and women are. And if women are out here thinking that I'm just going to have a career and I want nothing to do with children, you're going to find a long, lonely road of pets and disappointment, and you'll be stuck in that. And you'll be beyond your years of having children, and you'll be a spinster. And even if you do have children, your children are going to grow up and have their own lives. And for you ladies who have your son husbands, some of you are doing some really awful things with your husbands. That's another article. I won't address that here. Nature's perfect. We need women to have children. We don't need you in a workforce believing you're doing things that men do when you're actually not. If you liked the video, I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you didn't like it, tell me where I went wrong. Correct me if I made an error. Like, subscribe to my channel, share this video, and I'll be back with more controversial topics. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Goodbye.